As Mark Twain put it, a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. And while they raised $7 million in direct mail in 1980, they only gave $182,000 directly to candidates. The rest was used in independent expenditures or in overhead. In fact, 79 cents out of every dollar was plowed back into salaries and administrative costs and in-house costs. Now let's deal with some of the distortions. Here's how they tell the truth. A letter authored by Terry Dolan and David Keene and mailed to tens of thousands of Virginians on behalf of NCPAC and another independent group accused gubernatorial candidate Henry Howell of, quote, urging that Virginia school children be bused into D.C. It's quoted in both the Washington Star and the Conservative Digest. The letter was written over the signature of a Virginia congressman who later admitted that the letter misrepresented Howell's position. Ironically, an article on Dolan in the Conservative Digest, which is published by Richard Viguerie, remember these links, presents the Virginia busing letter as one of NCPAC's greatest achievements. Ads run in Idaho accuse Senator Church of voting for a congressional pay raise. In fact, Senator Church voted against the bill and NCPAC was forced to stop the advertisements. NCPAC labeled Senator DeConcini as a pro-abortion advocate. The national vice president of the pro-life movement wrote a letter of protest stating that Senator DeConcini was in fact one of the strongest advocates of the pro-life movement. NCPAC, in a fundraising appeal, states that Senator Kennedy can legally spend as much of his own money as he wants on his presidential campaign, quote, and he's got millions, end quote. Senator Kennedy was legally limited to spending $50,000 of his own money. NCPAC accused Frank Church again of emptying missile silos in Idaho. Quote, because of that, they won't be of much help in defense of your family or mine, said their ad. The U.S. Air Force replaced the outdated Titan I missiles with more advanced Minuteman missiles. NCPAC accused Senator Eagleton of giving $75 million of taxpayers' money to Nicaragua. Another quote. In fact, he voted against the aid. NCPAC had to correct the facts after the charge was made. NCPAC accused Senator John Melcher of supporting the Panama Canal giveaway, quote, quote. Senator Melcher, in fact, voted against the treaties. Dolan issued a public apology to him. They accused Senator Eagleton of voting for cutting off funds for the neutron bomb. In fact, he voted against the Hatfield Amendment, which would have cut off funds for the neutron bombs. On and on. There's one against Bayh. Bayh wasn't even there to vote. He was absent at the vote. Senator Culver and others were accused of costing the taxpayers $2.3 billion by voting for a New York City loan program. The loan realized a $32 million profit to the United States Treasury. They had a series of ads against Senator Sarbanes last spring and in the fall, and in fact, ultimately had to issue a public apology because they misquoted Senator Sarbanes' votes on two critical issues and attacked his son in the process of the running of those ads. It goes on and on. I submit to you that they have never put forward a positive idea, never a concept, no integrity, no concern, rather, about the integrity of the printed word or what they put on the airwaves. I'm going to read a few quotes to you as I finish up. I believe I have 5 minutes left. Phyllis Schlafly, model of motherhood. Boston Globe, 7/15/80. The atomic bomb is a marvelous gift that was given to our country by a wise God. Howard Phillips, National Journal, January 78. We organize discontent, just as all successful movements do. Jerry Falwell, Time, October 1979. And I know why you don't like the Jew. He can make more money accidentally than you can make on purpose. Lynn Nofziger, who recently left his job as assistant to the president, May 1981. I have a feeling that you have to establish the negatives. If they want to go out and beat Sarbanes around the head, that's all right with me. Same man who said we showed him an open grave. Richard Richards, I've quoted this already. They create all kinds of mischief. They're not responsible to anyone. May 5th, 1981. Terry Dolan, Washington Post, August of 80. The only difference between Republicans and Democrats on a presidential level is that the Democrats tell you they're going to screw you and the Republicans tell you they're not going to screw you, and they do it anyhow. Terry Dolan, Washington Post, August 80. I'm not after respectability. The only thing I care about is if we're effective. Richard Viguerie, Wall Street Journal, September 80. We've already taken control of the conservative movement, and conservatives have taken control of the Republican Party. The remaining thing is to see if we can take control of the country. Terry Dolan, Salt Lake City television station, March 80. We could elect Mickey Mouse to the House or Senate. You beat me to it. Terry Dolan, Washington Post, August of 80. Innuendo? Sure, but I have no ethical qualms about that. Terry Dolan again, New York Times, March 80. Images are important, not issues. Terry Dolan, Washington Post. On the federal budget, quote, 99% for defense, let's keep America strong, and 1% on delivering the mail. That's it, leave us alone. Terry Dolan, Baltimore Sun, January 81. The biggest enemy the American people have today is the U.S. government. Not the communists, not poverty, not racism. Anything the U.S. government touches, it screws up, whether it's defense or welfare. And this is a little crude, but I'll quote him anyway. Dolan, again, Time magazine, August 79. The Republican Party is a fraud. It's a social club where rich people go to pick their noses. Well, here's what those people want. They want low voter participation. It's critical and crucial to their efforts that people don't vote. They can only succeed when large numbers of people choose to abandon the process. 2, they want huge independent expenditures by committees that do not have to report who their sources of funds are, so-called non-designated PACs. They want elected officials who are beholden to them, the independent expenditure committees, rather than to the Republican or the Democratic Party, and certainly not to their constituents. 3, they want an overturn of the American system. There is an irony that these folks, wrapped in the American flag, are determined to destroy democracy, to undermine the political process, to create hatred of our government among the people. Every time he makes a speech, Ronald Reagan lashes out at our government, feeding the growing cynicism among voters, all of them feeding the growing trend not to vote, because it is the goal of the radical right. Now, I believe that you cannot say that you love your country and you hate its government. If we love our country, and some of us really do, warts and all, then we want democracy to work. We want people to vote, to participate. We believe that they have the intelligence to make this great experiment, as it's been called, work. And we believe that they need to take their destiny back into their own hands and not deliver this nation into the hands of the radical right, the fear brokers and the hate mongers among us, the deniers and the mockers who would bring this nation to its knees and deliver it into a different form of slavery. Thank you very much.
We'll now have a question and answer period where questions to both or either of the speakers will be fielded. I will point you out if you have a question, And I'll repeat the question. If you have a follow-up question, please wait till the answer is given, and then I'll give you a chance to ask it. The floor is now open for questions. You, sir.
Yes. I'm asking Mr. Morey. He said that Ronald Reagan could have balanced the budget, but the Congress kept him from doing it. I'm wondering how he was going to cut or raise taxes or any combination of that to balance the budget, beyond what is being done now.
You mean you'll even ask a question of me when I seem to be a racist who is intent upon spreading hatred and a new form of slavery and what else? I'll try to answer it. What I'd really love to do is answer that last speech, because I know about 95% of the people she's talking about personally, and I will just tell you one thing as an aside, and I'll answer your question. I have discussed with Terry Dolan these various comments that he supposedly has made. He's told me personally those things are nothing more than lies, period. He hasn't said those kind of things. Secondly, I think that you ought to know that when people in politics get together, sometimes they talk just like generals that are discussing their next campaign, and that's true of Democrats as well as Republicans. And if you get a hold of something that says our goal is to control this next election, or our goal is to control the House of Representatives or something like that, and then you pull out those little words and emphasize the word control, you can get a little different point of view. In terms of your question, you asked me how President Reagan could balance the budget. There's a number of different ways it can be done, and I'm not going to stand here and tell you Reagan would have cut this and he would have cut that. I can tell you this. I do have sources in the administration that I do talk to frequently. They are not necessarily those who talk to the Des Moines Register. And by the way, Mrs. Cutler, Lynn Nofziger is not even alleged to have been the source of this comment about the open grave business. That's another fellow who was also a friend of ours who says he never said such a thing in the first place, but Lynn Nofziger was nowhere near when the event supposedly happened. So I hope you'll at least take his name out the next time. In terms of balancing the federal budget, it cannot be done under the president's program, and I happen to think he's right, by cutting it out of the military, first of all. We simply face the fact that if we are not able to defend ourselves in a credible fashion, we lose our ability to control anything else that goes on in this world. Now, people can laugh and snicker all they want. Let me say I'm obviously aware of the fact this is not an audience made up predominantly of people like me. That's fine. You figured that out too, didn't you? The way that it can be done is by abolishing unnecessary and abusive government agencies. Secondly, it can be done very easily by simply going through a lot of the domestic agencies that may have good purposes and simply saying, we can't today afford this. You got to take a look at it this way. If you're going to, in today's economy, make the decision to spend money on a domestic program, or for that matter anything else, you're actually going to make the decision to run up that budget, assuming you go above levels that can be funded. If you make the decision to run up that budget, you're making in a deficit situation, you're making a decision, basically, to cause unemployment. Now, I think that if you don't believe me? It's this simple. When the federal government goes in and borrows a great deal of money, in this case, depending again on whose figures you want to use, 75 or 80% of the total capital available for investment in this country, and it borrows it to feed bureaucrats and whatever else they may have, there is less money available at a better rate for anybody in private industry to use. And for those of you who don't know how it works, incidentally, the Treasury Department, when it borrows money, doesn't put out a letter saying we're willing to pay 7%. It says we're going to have an auction of Treasury bills today, and it takes the lowest bid. And it'll pay whatever the market will pay. If the mafia gets in there with 86% and it's the lowest, they're going to get those bills. That's where we get those high interest rates from. And then the rest of the market has to keep pace with it, because no self-respecting banker is going to go loan somebody down the street who might get laid off from his job money at 9% to go buy a car so somebody else can have a job. Not when he can give it to the government for nearly twice that. He isn't going to. And if you're going to run up those deficits with domestic spending programs, you might as well face that fact. We don't live in a world in which you can have all of the perfect choices you want. It is not realistic to run up with flag a whole long list of things you'd like to have the government do. Cure every ill under the sun, whether it's a real ill or not. We don't have those kind of options in front of us. Now, if somebody does have, please call the White House. If you want to know how to get there, I can give you some names of folks you can talk to. If you know some way to spend all the money you want to spend and not have a big federal deficit, the only way that I know that some liberals could be happy is if they took it all out of defense, and I can tell you where there's some folks overseas that would be glad to help to participate in that. So in general, I hope that answers your question, but basically speaking, the cuts need to be made in the domestic programs. You need to get rid of things like I talked about with this senior citizens feeding center, where they could just as easily have not given the $7,000 for food and forgot the $43,000 for overhead.
If I may ask a follow-up.
Certainly.
Given a hypothetical situation where you have the choice of paying, say, $4,000 in grants for education for a student, and he'd probably return over the long run, say, 10, 20, 30,000 more in taxes, or not, or cutting that out, which would be the better policy?
I went to college a while ago myself, and I earned my way through school. It's not an impossibility. I think that you have to answer this question, which instead of me answering that one, you answer, why should some guy who's unemployed anyhow and finally gets a job at the last minute when he's just about gone as far as money is concerned and has 3 or 4 kids to feed, take his tax money and pay you to go to school? Answer that question for me. That's the real one you ought to ask.
Is that the way you're characterizing all taxpayers?
All taxpayers is what?
Some other people who pay those taxes aren't the people you just described.
People pay taxes who have income of one sort or another. I don't.
Characterizing all taxpayers as people who just barely got a job and have
No. I'm not saying that at all. Some taxpayers, I didn't say that. I said you explain to somebody who can barely make it on his own why his taxes ought to be raised in order to send you to college. You can explain it to rich people too if you want to. I don't care.
the person you so described will clearly be paying very small taxes, and the rich person you just mentioned will be paying more. I hope.
You hope. I'll tell you who really pays taxes if you want to know the truth, and I think even Mrs. Cutler would agree with me on this. Taxes are not, by and large, paid by rich people anywhere near the proportion some people think they are, because they know how to shelter. That's right, because they know how to shelter their income. Taxes are paid in large proportion by people who have reportable income, namely people on wages and salaries, and most of them are making decent income, but they're not making anything substantial, and they're not raising their kids on caviar, as some people might have you think. I think the working people of this country are definitely suffering from the effects of this inflation. And just for the record, Ronald Reagan's budget didn't even take effect until October 1 of last year, so I hope nobody says Ronald Reagan caused this current recession. You'll say it anyway, I know that, but it isn't true.
Okay. I would please ask that you wait to be recognized before you ask a question. You've been waiting.